David Bowie was more than a musician. He was a man possessed by reinvention, a chameleon who bent genres to his will. Yet the miracle of Bowie's music wasn't just in his own shape-shifting. It was in the way he pulled others into his orbit, guiding some of the most creative and distinctive guitarists of their eras to elevate his visions. Bowie understood the guitar not just as an instrument, but as an extension of character and soul. He wasn't simply looking for players. He was looking for co-creators, collaborators who would bring their own essence into the mix and add something unpredictable, maybe even uncontrollable, to his sound. When Mick Ronson joined him in 1970, the world had no idea what was about to hit it. Ronson was a Yorkshireman with a punk spirit and a glam heart, a guitarist who played like he was hacking his way through a jungle of sound. Bowie had already released 2 albums with little commercial success, but once Ronson entered the studio, everything changed. Together, they made The Man Who Sold the World.
I guess at the time it was sort of a signature song for me. This is called Man Who Sold the World.
An album that threw off the hippie vibes of the 1960s and went full throttle into something darker and louder. Ronson's Les Paul Custom, with its thick, powerful tone, was front and center, snarling and driving Bowie's songs into territory that was both menacing and exhilarating. Songs like Width of a Circle showcased Ronson's approach, brutal, melodic, and full of grit. When they moved on to Hunky Dory, Ronson's playing matured, layering over the melodies rather than just pushing them forward, giving Bowie's more introspective songs a sense of depth and complexity. And then there was the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. If Bowie was the alien messiah Ziggy, then Ronson was his right-hand enforcer, the Axeman whose riffs made every one of those tracks feel like a declaration. Ronson was more than just Bowie's guitarist during this time. He was his creative partner, bringing a controlled frenzy to tracks like Suffragette City and Moon Age Daydream. In Starman, Ronson crafted those spiraling, ascending lines that felt as cosmic as the lyrics. He wasn't just playing the guitar, he was painting scenes with sound, adding his own mystique to Bowie's wild imagery. His influence on Bowie's early success can't be overstated. He was the thunder to Bowie's lightning, giving Bowie's vision a hard-edged electric reality that pushed them both into rock history.
The kind of fame that I had in the early 70s. And the lead guitarist with that band was Mick Ronson. And unfortunately, tragically, he succumbed to cancer 3 or 4 days ago.
After Ronson's departure in 1973, Bowie took a detour, stepping up to the guitar himself on Diamond Dogs. Known as an experimentalist and a bit of a dabbler with instruments, Bowie wasn't particularly known for his lead guitar skills, but he took up the challenge with a reckless confidence that matched the album's dystopian themes. On Rebel Rebel, he crafted one of the most iconic riffs in rock history, a simple yet snarling phrase that became a rallying cry for outsiders everywhere. Bowie's playing was rough around the edges, but it was exactly what Diamond Dogs needed. There was no polish, no attempt to outshine Ronson. Instead, Bowie wielded the guitar like a blunt object, putting all the guts and grit into every note.
And in his passing, I want to say that of all the early 70s guitar players, Mick was probably one of the most influential and profound, and I miss him a lot.
With Young Americans and Station to Station, Bowie moved into a new, funkier phase. For this transformation, he turned to Carlos Alomar, a seasoned session guitarist who had played with James Brown. Alomar brought a rhythmic tightness, a groove that made Bowie's new sound possible. Where Ronson had been all about theatrical solos, Alomar was a master of restraint, a man who knew how to make 3 chords sound like a symphony. His riff on Fame, a song co-written with John Lennon, is a masterclass in funk simplicity, a relentless groove that became the backbone of the track. Alomar's style was tight and syncopated, almost surgical, and it became the foundation of Bowie's mid-70s sound. Earl Slick, who had joined Bowie on the Diamond Dogs tour, soon became another vital piece in Bowie's evolving band. Slick's playing was raw and edgy, with a bluesy backbone that added bite to Alomar's smooth rhythms. Bowie thrived on this duality, crafting a sound that could shift from seductive to savage in a single breath. When the time came to record Station to Station, Slick and Alomar formed a guitar duo that anchored Bowie's increasingly dark, intense music. Slick's solo on Stay is a prime example, with its jagged edges and guttural wails that perfectly mirrored the song's tortured energy. By the time Bowie moved to Berlin in the late 70s, he was a different man and musician, far removed from the Ziggy Stardust days. He was restless, turning toward ambient and electronic music, and he found a kindred spirit in Robert Fripp, guitarist for King Crimson, and an avant-garde genius in his own right. Fripp's contribution to Heroes is legendary. His droning, wailing guitar created an atmosphere unlike anything Bowie had done before. Using his Frippatronics technique, Fripp produced long, sustained notes that hung in the air, creating a sound that was both haunting and ecstatic. His work on Heroes wasn't so much a guitar solo as it was an invocation, a mantra that elevated Bowie's lyrics into something almost sacred. Fripp's work on Bowie's Berlin albums, Low, Heroes and Lodger, was transformative, a perfect match for Bowie's bleak, experimental vision. Fripp's approach pushed Bowie's music into avant-garde territory, expanding the idea of what rock could be. Bowie's partnership with Adrian Belew in the late 70s was another stroke of inspiration, one as chaotic as it was creative. Belew was plucked from Frank Zappa's band, a place where precision and unpredictability reigned. When Bowie brought him in, he was looking for something untamed, a wild sound to match his new direction. Belew's playing was frenetic, skittering from sharp riffs to wild, animalistic squeals. Bowie knew that Belew's style was unlike anything else in rock, and he used it to infuse his music with a sense of urgency and unpredictability. Belew's contributions to Bowie's live sound and recordings added a visceral edge, a rawness that kept the music teetering on the edge of chaos. And then there was Stevie Ray Vaughan. Vaughan was a Texas blues virtuoso, a man who could wring emotion out of every note, and Bowie knew that bringing Vaughan's soul and grit into his sound could give his next project something extraordinary. When Vaughan joined Bowie for Let's Dance, he transformed songs like China Girl and the title track, turning polished pop into something full of life and tension. Vaughan's playing wasn't just bluesy, it was fierce and soulful, grounding Bowie's 80s hit machine with an authenticity that was unmistakable. Let's Dance became one of Bowie's biggest successes, and Vaughan's searing guitar work was a massive part of that. In the late 80s, Bowie formed Tin Machine with guitarist Reeves Gabrels, a player with an avant-garde sensibility and a love for noise. Gabrels, a Boston-based guitarist, brought an experimental, almost industrial edge to Bowie's sound, one that mirrored the emerging digital age. Their partnership continued well beyond Tin Machine. Gabrels would go on to contribute to Bowie's solo albums like Outside and Earthling, records that explored dark, fractured landscapes of sound. Gabrels used effects pedals and digital processing to make his guitar sound like a machine, producing tones that were mechanical, unsettling, yet alive. His work on Little Wonder epitomized the paranoia and isolation of Bowie's 90s music, a world where the human and the synthetic collided in a blur of sound. David Thorne entered Bowie's sphere in the early 2000s, bringing a mastery of ambient sound that added a new level of depth to Bowie's late career work. Thorne wasn't interested in traditional guitar lines or solos. He was an architect of atmosphere, building vast textural soundscapes that evoked both wonder and desolation. On Reality and the Next Day, Thorne's guitar was less a melodic force and more an emotional landscape, something that filled the spaces between Bowie's lyrics with vast, echoing worlds. In tracks like Dancing Out in Space, Thorne used his tremolo arm and effects to create a sound that was both ethereal and grounded, a fitting counterpoint to Bowie's reflections on mortality and existence. Thorne's ambient textures were reminiscent of Fripp's work, but with a modern twist, a sonic dreamscape that felt endless and deeply human. Bowie's legacy is inextricable from the guitarists who helped shape it. From the visceral intensity of Ronson to the ambient brilliance of Thorne, each of these musicians brought their own world into Bowie's, creating music that was as diverse and expansive as the man himself. Bowie didn't just work with guitarists, he created with them, allowing their voices to become part of his own. They were his collaborators, his conspirators, and in the end, they were the ones who helped him create the sounds that made him immortal. Bowie's music was never just his own. It was a shared journey, a cosmic voyage through sound, with each guitarist as an essential, radiant star. Together they forged a legacy that transcends any one style or era, leaving a sound that will echo long after the last note fades.